Okay, we are in the home stretch, everyone. Thank you so much for your continued time and attention. I'm very excited for this last presentation today. We're about to be joined by Ciara Morin, who will, of course, be discussing the topic of being your own best advocate. Ciara is a PKD patient, advocate, and wellness coach. She is a registered holistic nutritionist who is passionate about educating the community on the nutritional, lifestyle, and mental health aspects of living with a chronic kidney disease, like polycystic kidney disease. She believes there is so much to be done to support the health of a PKD patient long before kidney failure occurs. Proactive healthcare, personal empowerment, and a strong sense of community are what she believes every patient deserves to experience. Ciara will be presenting, as I mentioned, being your own best advocate, and will focus on the importance of finding your voice as a patient, advocating for yourself and loved ones, and how to affect positive change on your PKD journey. Learning to be a strong advocate is a skill that will serve you well for a lifetime, and as a patient herself, Ciara enjoys sharing her perspective on how to do this. She will dive into how you can turn your truth into a helpful narrative so that you can receive the best possible support and care while feeling more in control of the process. Additionally, you will gain an understanding of what might be preventing you from advocating effectively and learn how to do so with greater ease. This presentation will help you to feel more confident and empowered, whether you're living with PKD or supporting a loved one who is. So I would like to take this time to welcome Ciara Morin. We will go to her pre-recorded presentation and then, of course, be joined with Ciara for the live Q&A to follow. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ciara, and I'm a PKD patient and registered nutritionist. I'm happy you've taken the time to join me for such an important discussion today, being your own best advocate. I'm honored to have the chance to talk about such an important topic when it comes to the care of PKD patients. Self-advocacy may seem like a simple thing to do for yourself, but speaking from experience, I know it's not easy because it requires good self-awareness and a lot of practice. Actually, strong self-advocacy is really about awareness, acceptance, and appreciation or self-love. You've got to accept your journey, understand who you are as a person, not just as a patient, and you need to have love and respect for yourself on your mission to live well. I know I'm starting off a bit deep, but I promise I will help make sense of this in a tangible way shortly. So have you ever left an appointment feeling confused or disappointed? I'm sure many of you have. Maybe you forgot to ask a burning question, or your question wasn't answered in a satisfying way. Maybe you were simply told, everything looks good, or just drink more water, consume less salt. I've experienced all of this as a PKD patient, and I felt the disappointment and the confusion as a result. I used to feel really disappointed with my doctors, like they were missing the mark somehow. But over time, I realized that they were telling me what they knew to be true or what they assumed I needed to hear. My doctors were all very kind, knowledgeable people, and they were doing their part. I, on the other hand, was not doing my part. I wanted more, but my doctors didn't know that. I was not a strong self-advocate in the past, which is why I enjoy sharing my journey with others, because I'm sure many of you can relate to this to a degree. And I'm sure some of you follow me on Instagram, or at least I hope you do, where I'm fairly active and engaged with the PKD community. I like to ask questions of the community, and I recently asked, are you your best advocate? And I found that about half of my followers felt they were not their best advocate all or some of the time. This tells me there's huge potential for growth. So I'm happy to be talking about self-advocacy today. I think advocacy is one of those understated skills that really affects the mental health of patients, so I'm thrilled that we can cover it here. Many of you may be advocating for yourself or a loved one to the best of your ability and not seeing the desired results. We'll get to the bottom of that shortly, because everyone deserves to feel seen, validated, and to be cared for in a manner that meets their personal needs. If you're wondering if you have to be outgoing in order to be a good advocate, the answer is no, definitely not. You can stay true to yourself and your personality, even if you're quiet or more reserved like I am, and still you can find effective ways to have your needs met. So let's get right into it. I really hope you find this insightful. Okay, so the first point to mention is that effectively advocating for your needs starts somewhere deeper than you might expect. What do I mean by that? I mean, you have to learn to love and respect yourself and your needs in order to cultivate an inner voice to guide you. If you don't listen to yourself, how can you understand yourself? And if you don't understand yourself, how can others? Your voice is especially important when you have an invisible chronic illness like PKD. On your worst days, you may appear fine or healthy to outsiders, and unless you express what's happening behind the scenes, you will not feel understood or well supported. I do not want anyone in our community to suffer in silence or to have to navigate this journey alone. This is why it's important to find your voice as a patient. You find personal empowerment and the right type of support for you. So we're going to cover 3 main topics here, each of which will help you uncover ways in which you can improve your advocacy skills. The first is how to find your voice as a PKD patient. The second is what strong advocacy is and isn't, what it looks and feels like. And the third is how to actually influence positive change on your journey so that you can see those desired outcomes. So let's start with finding your voice as a PKD patient. Developing your voice as a patient is about understanding your situation, accepting your story for what it is or isn't, and choosing your narrative and speaking your truth. These all lead to a more positive approach overall. The journey starts by looking inward. It's the quiet, reflective work that needs to happen before you begin to use your external voice. We have to start here because living with PKD is a lifelong journey that many of us are thrown into, and we can't simply receive an overwhelming diagnosis and then miraculously turn into highly self-aware PKD experts. Oh, and by the way, if you have PKD or your loved one has PKD, you are an expert because you live this experience every single day. Never forget this because your voice and your experience hold a lot of power. So, after a diagnosis, of course, there's a lot to learn. There's healing to be done, and there are some choices to make in order to get you onto a more positive and empowered path. I want you to know that even if you weren't recently diagnosed, your journey to empowerment and elevated care can begin whenever you're ready. I certainly wasn't a strong advocate right away, and I'll tell you why. And if you hear a pause in this, it's because I'm taking a sip of water. All of my PKD friends will totally understand that, but I'm always thirsty. So I know many of you can probably relate to my story here. I was diagnosed with PKD in my final year of high school. I was 17 years old and my uncle was just about to receive his transplant, which would be the first in my extended family. It was a very emotional time, and all I could do to manage the anxiety that I felt was to forget about it all. I wasn't ready to face the truth, so I also wasn't ready to find my voice and advocate for my own needs. I was also, and still am, a very reserved, quiet individual who already struggled to take up space and to be heard in the world. Thankfully, my mom, who was also a PKDer herself, was the voice of reason and my biggest supporter through those early years. So parents and loved ones, please remember that everything I say here also applies to you too. Part of being a strong self-advocate as a patient is realizing when you need help and allowing someone else to help advocate for you. It wasn't until I started having kids that my own health came to the top of my priority list. I became a good advocate for my children because I love them endlessly, and I'm always determined to do what's best for them. Over time, I realized I needed to extend this mentality to my own care, and that advocating for my kids was good practice for advocating for myself. In my 30s, I've been able to fully accept my PKD story and to make sense of what it means. I've found my voice, and I'm able to inform the type of care and support that I receive. Being in this position as my own best advocate helps me to feel much more in control of my story. I'm sharing all of this really to say that strong self-advocacy doesn't come easily or quickly. It takes time to settle into this adventure of navigating life with a chronic illness. Please be patient with yourself and allow yourself a bit of grace when working towards a new goal like this. Finding your voice as a patient takes real effort. There are a few stages to move through in order to find and properly utilize that voice with confidence and become your own best advocate. First is understanding your situation. And I mean more than just grasping that you have a chronic illness. Lay out all the facts and say them out loud. Something like this. I have PKD1. I am 36 years old. I have a family history of this disease. My kidney function is currently X, and I'm worried about my future. So I'm feeling overwhelmed and unsure. Sit with that for a while. Allow space for every emotion that comes up rather than denying them and toughing it out. The goal here is to reach some level of acceptance within yourself. This journey is and will be challenging, but you can do it. Second is accepting your story for what it is, or maybe what it isn't. You could try saying, I have potentially a lifetime of health challenges ahead of me with PKD, but this is not a death sentence. This is a chance for me to find motivation in my situation and to strive to live my best life because I deserve it. I often like to tell people that chronic illness gives us a bit of a psychological advantage because we're so hyper aware of our health, and it's a bit easy to know where to focus our energy in order to stay healthy. Like, we know we have to keep our kidneys healthy. We know we need to drink a lot of water and stay active and that sort of thing. You accept your story as one that is tough and scary at times, but one that can be hugely inspiring. Number 3 is choosing your narrative. Positive self-talk, choosing good language, valuing yourself, and looking inward. Cultivating that inner voice to be your guide. Look at how you view yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you care for yourself. Strong advocacy is reflective of self-acceptance and self-love. This is something I've been putting a lot of energy into lately because the words we use every day can have a huge impact on our life. It starts with implementing more positive self-talk, like, this is hard for me and I can do it. And choosing more affirming language as you move through the day. One example of this I've shared a few times with my community, but I like to say I have polycystic kidneys rather than I have polycystic kidney disease because it feels lighter to carry around somehow. This approach helps me to stay focused on my wellness strategies rather than get bogged down by everything that could go wrong in the future. The next thing is to be more curious about your needs, most of which are invisible to the outside world. You can't advocate for your needs externally if you don't know how to understand and meet them yourself. For example, maybe you're exhausted lately, but you're also going to bed way too late. Take some time to look at how you care for yourself. And the final phase is taking that curiosity and self-acceptance and directing it outward, or speaking your truth. This is often something that holds people back from becoming their own best advocate. This means removing stigma, setting aside pride, and getting vulnerable. We need to get comfortable talking about our health challenges in general before we can truly advocate for ourselves. Why? So we can value ourselves and so that we can speak with confidence when we need something. Your truth is what attracts the positivity that you crave. Don't forget that. Finding your voice will help you realize your power as a PKD patient. You know yourself the best. You are your own expert. You are the most capable person to bring about the change that you want to see. You can take the reins and you can be active in your care because you're more than a statistic or a name on a chart. You're the main character of this story and only you can lead the way. So let's talk about how to do that. First, I want to touch on what strong advocacy is and a bit about what it's not. So PKD patient advocacy specifically is something that can feel complicated at times. Having a chronic illness means we're all on this very specific lifelong journey or a certain road through life. And that's also what brings us together as a community. It means we need lifelong care and support of varying degrees. We will forever need the type of support that will help us to feel good, optimistic, and empowered. But how can we get this type of care and support? Not only do we have to ask for it, but we are in charge of bringing it about. Sometimes it finds us, but often we need to be active in cultivating the crucial relationships with our support network and our care team to ensure we get what we need. So what exactly does advocacy really mean? We've all heard the word advocate before. Advocating for oneself is a strategy for ensuring our needs are properly met. To advocate is to speak up, to question, and to become validated as a result. For example, as a PKD patient, this means working with your doctor, having two-way open dialogue to make sure you feel confident and informed. Advocacy also applies to other relationships, your partner, other family members, nutritionists, naturopaths, massage therapists, the list goes on. Advocacy also means removing stigma, setting aside pride, and getting vulnerable. We need to get comfortable talking about our health challenges out loud in order to be a good advocate for ourselves. So why should you advocate? Simply put, strong advocacy breaks down barriers. These are the things that may stand in your way of feeling fulfilled on your journey. To advocate for ourselves is the best way to ensure positive outcomes. And we want to make sure we're getting the best level of care. Having strong advocacy skills puts you back in the driver's seat and gives you a sense of control. Here's a perspective that I've found very helpful. Doctors and medical professionals have a lot to learn from patients. Yes, they have extensive knowledge of the body and how it operates, but our feedback as patients is crucial in their overall understanding of this specific disease. It's really a partnership. You get out of this relationship what you're able to put into it. Advocating for yourself creates a positive cycle where you're both learning from the doctor and informing them on how to best care for your unique needs. They know the science, and we can share the lived experience. This is a truly powerful combination. You're also affecting your current health, but also putting effort into influencing your future self. Your body, mind, and soul will thank you for this, I promise. By developing and using the skill of strong self-advocacy, you're also paving the way for other patients, including future generations of PKDers. Now, I want to add that all of this also applies to relationships with friends and family or whoever else may be supporting you on your journey. You can't expect them to just show up the way you need them to. You've got to show them exactly what you need and how you want to receive it. So I want to look at what a strong advocate looks like and also what it feels like to successfully advocate for yourself, because that feeling, that gut feeling, is a telltale sign that you're doing it right. And I think personally, a strong advocate looks like someone who is very aware of both themselves and their needs, someone who likes delving into the facts and knowing the science, so they're really informed and they do their homework. It's someone who has learned to be vulnerable. I know this is not easy, but they put themselves out there and they're open and they're willing to share their truth. A strong advocate is someone who finds opportunity, takes chances for personal growth, someone who communicates by using their voice that they have cultivated and sharing that story. It's someone who is willing to advise their team and their supporters on exactly what they need and also how they want to receive support. It's someone who is okay with trial and error. They give it their best effort and they try different approaches. They're flexible and they're open-minded. And finally, I think a strong advocate is someone who is empowered. They feel confident and more in control as a result of all these things that they've put effort into. Now, in the beginning, I asked if you'd ever left an appointment feeling unfulfilled or disappointed. This usually occurs from a lack of advocacy. And I want to share a quick personal example from my own experience. I had a really wonderful, brilliant nephrologist for many years. He was slowing down a bit and not really seeing patients in person during the pandemic and then since the pandemic. I had full respect for him and I knew I was always in good hands, but my appointments were very short and almost too business-like for my needs. I'm in a very proactive stage of my journey and I'm doing all I can to prolong my kidney health as well as my mental health. I realized I needed more flexible appointments with more time to just sit and chat. I didn't need more advice necessarily, but I needed more validation and I was craving conversation. So I asked my nephrologist to please refer me to a different one who had more or different availability. He did, and I met the new one and instantly felt a connection with him, which left me feeling more satisfied. Why hadn't I thought to ask this sooner, I wondered. Probably out of fear or embarrassment, which was a clear sign that I had some inner work to do. Now that we've discussed what strong advocacy looks like, let's quickly touch on the opposite, or the things that may be preventing you from advocating to the best of your ability. You can never be a weak advocate. You just need a little nudge to get you going in the right direction. And sorry, I'm just going to take a quick sip of water. So here are a few signs you may not be advocating to your full potential. You engage in a lot of negative self-talk. You put yourself down, you squash emotions, or you invalidate yourself fairly regularly. Some examples are, there's nothing I can do to help myself. Ugh, I don't care. This doesn't matter. I can't do this. So you're likely also not meeting your own needs. Remember, advocacy is an inside job, and you need to care for yourself and lead by example so that others can learn from you. You don't like talking externally about PKD or your health in general. That's the stigma and the shame coming in. This is a huge obstacle and one that requires time and attention to cross over. You're also maybe very agreeable and you're afraid to ask stupid questions. You feel unheard or confused after appointments. For me, this was the telltale sign that I could be doing a much better job. And I also was feeling lonely and just generally misunderstood. Okay, let's get into the good stuff. Actually advocating for yourself and how to make change on your journey. So how do you become your best advocate? This is the big question we're here to answer. And it's all about starting small. It's about looking inward and taking baby steps towards empowerment, because nothing substantial is achieved overnight. Please don't forget that. I also want you to remember that advocating is just externalizing your needs or desires when you've already successfully met them to the best of your ability. If you can master these next few things, then I guarantee you will be on your way to becoming your own best advocate. The first thing is that positive self-talk that I mentioned. This is the change your mind and change your life mentality. Any change you want to see in your life needs to start from within. So start talking to yourself in a way that you want others to speak to you. Try daily affirmations like, I am important, I'm worthy, I deserve to take up space. Positive self-talk with practice leads to self-respect and appreciation, and it's the foundation for strong external advocacy. Remember, you're the expert and you have the potential to be your best advocate too. Every opportunity you have for self-talk is a great opportunity to practice strengthening those advocacy skills. You have to believe in your own value and power in order to show up in a way that serves you well. Secondly, understanding your own needs first and getting to know yourself. And I mean really getting to know yourself. Ask yourself lots of questions. How well do you actually know yourself? What are you curious about? What are your greatest challenges when it comes to PKD? And what are you looking for in a doctor? These are just some examples of questions that you should definitely be asking yourself on a fairly frequent basis. Remember, you can't effectively advocate for your needs if you're not even sure what they are. The more clear you become, the more efficiently you'll be able to communicate this to others. Something kind of fun you can do is to find out more about your personality type. This might help you better understand what kind of communication you require or the type of support you generally might need from those around you. If you Google the Myers-Briggs free personality test, it's pretty easy to find. You might enjoy taking it. It only takes a few minutes. If you're like me and sensitive to criticism and reluctant to open up, it's challenging work to speak your truth and to ask for help. I took this test recently and I learned that I cherish and crave one-on-one relationships and deep, meaningful conversations. And this was really helpful to hear because even though I knew this about myself, I don't think I fully accepted it. And this type of relationship is one that I crave with a doctor. I want that one-on-one. We can sit across from each other and have a good discussion about PKD and my health. So I always want to check in with myself, and I hope that everybody listening will start to do this as well. You want to prepare for the day by asking yourself how you're feeling, what you need, just like you would check the weather and dress appropriately. Your needs change day by day, so stay curious and pay attention to how you feel. These are all the best steps that you can take to understanding your own needs and yourself as a person. So number 3 is talking to others about your health. And I mean, not just with your partner or inside your house. I mean, getting better at putting it out there in general. You do not want to keep this a secret, because the more we keep this a secret, the more stigma there is around living with a chronic illness, and we want to get rid of that. As a society, I think we still have a long way to go, but we'll get there one step at a time. But it starts with each of us letting go of that pride and learning to be vulnerable with the world. I know it can feel terrifying to talk about your PKD story out loud. So if this is hard for you, just start small. Have a safe person to confide in, to practice with, and to rely on if or when you need help or you can't advocate for yourself. Usually this would be a partner, a spouse, parent, sibling, or someone who knows you really well. Having just one person to open up to can take some of the weight off your shoulders. So for any loved ones or supporters who are listening, I want you to know how truly valuable your presence and support are. It makes a world of difference. Here's another interesting thought, and you may think I'm crazy at first, but I'll explain. Practice discussing your health with strangers. A stranger doesn't know anything about you, and they likely haven't heard of PKD. So this is a perfect opportunity to choose your narrative and share a tidbit with them. You can also be truly yourself because you might not ever see them again. If you are sharing something encouraging that you're doing to support your health, share it with pride, and you'll see how validating a stranger's response can be. This summer, I was flat out asked why I don't drink alcohol. And I said, I have kidney disease and I do everything that I can to stay healthy. And that person's response was simply, wow, good for you. I think because of the way I presented it, I didn't get this negative response, or I didn't read anything on their face that told me they felt bad for me. So strike up a conversation with a manicurist or a massage therapist or someone you see at a bus stop or your Uber driver, and just see where it takes you. I find that if you just start talking about health in general, you'll get a sense of whether or not you're ready or comfortable to share some of your own truth. Okay, so the next thing is stop being so agreeable. This is something I've really struggled with myself, and I think we all deserve to take up space and time. So ask questions, ask for help, and stop worrying about how you'll be perceived. Put on your toddler hat. As some of you know, I have 2 little kids at home, so this is very relevant for me, and I hope it resonates with you too. I feel like kids are always pushing back on things, wanting more information or explanations, and stopping me in my tracks with yet another why. I think we should all channel this energy in our medical appointments so that we're fully engaged and always learning. If something doesn't make sense to you, it's your job to say that, and it's your doctor's job to help you make sense of it. Remember, this is a 2-way relationship that can be very powerful when both sides are fully engaged. Also, when it comes to asking questions, no question is a stupid question, because anything you're curious about will impact the quality of your care. I actually re-ask questions sometimes to let the answers sink in better. Also, I've heard from some community members that they're not sure what kinds of questions to even ask in appointments, and this is okay too. If this sounds like you, in your next appointment, try saying, I want to learn more, but I'm not sure what to ask. Is there anything else you can tell me about what I could be doing? If you're confused in any way, externalize those thoughts and let your doctor know. Don't keep it to yourself. You can be unsure and still fully engaged, so don't feel like you need to know everything already. Instead, just go in with an open mind and be open to learning. Remember, you are more than just a number on a chart. You deserve to take up that space and time, and you deserve to make the most of those precious appointments. So number 5, let's nip any resentment and confusion in the bud. If you leave your appointments feeling this way, please listen carefully. First off, I want you to always prepare for your appointments. Read up on PKD news, visit the PKD Foundation website to see what's been happening, be in the know, keep your finger on the pulse of all things PKD so that you can arrive at your appointment and you can engage your doctor in meaningful conversation rather than just answering their questions or listening to their advice. Now, it's okay if this is too much and you don't want to go there. Just put on your curiosity hat and show up to ask questions. That is enough too. Another way to prepare for appointments is to keep notes, and you want to bring these notes with you to your appointments. Write down your questions, your concerns, your feelings that come up. You want to think about what your needs are for the specific appointment and how you'd like those needs to be met. So you're going in with a specific goal in mind, and make sure to write it down. The next step in preparation is practice what you'd like to say and discuss with a loved one. I find that it's like practicing for a presentation. You want to practice what you say so it's clear and cemented in your mind. Then when you get to your appointment, if you start to feel flustered or overwhelmed, you can refer to your notes, but you've also practiced what you're going to say. It should come out more naturally. Also, if you go over results like blood work or something like that during your appointment, ask for specifics, take notes in the moment, write down your results. You can refer back to these notes later on if there's any confusion. Additionally, you can ask how to get access to those results so that you can refer to those directly later. And finally, and this is my favorite, I think the best way to get rid of confusion and resentment after appointments is to schedule a debrief with a loved one after. So I find that teaching someone else what I've just learned really helps cement the concepts in my mind. And it's a good opportunity to talk about how you're feeling about the discussion you just had. Everything is raw and real. So in the moment, take some time to discuss those feelings with your partner or your loved one and use that time to process those feelings so that they don't bubble up later and have a negative effect on your mental health. Number 6, my final piece of advice for bringing about positive change on your journey here is to connect with others just like you. Through doing this, you can learn from your peers, you can feel validated in your struggles and triumphs, and you feel a sense of belonging that absolutely helps build up confidence and positivity. Please do not do any of this alone. If you're a PKD or without a community, please reach out to me anytime and I'll connect you with some incredible people. You can also reach out to your local PKD foundation to ask for support or guidance. I think a strong advocate is highly aware, curious, and well-connected and supported, and I want all of these things for each of you. The fact that you're listening to this presentation tells me that you already know the importance of community and you're motivated to learn as much as you can about PKD. Keep that mentality and keep feeding that curiosity because it will serve you well in your efforts to care for yourself on this journey. Okay, so I know we've touched on a lot here, but I really hope this has resonated with you. What I want you to take away today is that strong self-advocacy is really about awareness, acceptance, and appreciation or self-love. It's not about being the squeaky wheel or yelling from the rooftops or asking the biggest, brightest questions. It's about finding your own unique way of communicating so that you can stay true to your personality and get your unique needs met as a patient. This is a skill that requires planning, practice, and persistence in order for you to feel truly, deeply satisfied on your journey. I think the process of becoming a better self-advocate sets you up for becoming a healthier person, both physically and emotionally, despite what PKD might throw your way. It helps you to first better understand yourself and then to express yourself in a very empowered way so you can build up a strong support network around you. Never stop asking yourself, what else do I need? What else would be helpful here? You know yourself best. You are the expert, and you should continually weigh in on everything that's happening. If you feel like you need more support on this journey, try to do some of that inner work and implement the steps I mentioned. And with a little practice and patience, I know you'll be well on your way to becoming your own best advocate. And that's it. I really hope you enjoyed this. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, and we're back, and I'm going to be joined with Ciara momentarily for the live Q&A following her presentation. Ciara, if you're there, I'll welcome you to the session. There you are. Hi.
Hello, I'm here. Hi.
Well, thank you for such a incredible presentation. A lot of information there, and I think before we dive in, watching your journey in the short time that we've gotten to know each other has been nothing short of inspiring. I think we're only a little over a year from getting to know each other, and the value that you've brought to the PKD Foundation of Canada, to our community, but of equal importance to the community that you're building on your own through PKD Wellness and your social channels is absolutely incredible. So I know I speak for those in attendance, but I applaud you for championing your own journey, for being there for other folks, and helping them advocate as you have.
Thank you, Jeff. It's actually, watching my presentation, it was a little bit crazy to me because a year and a half ago when we met, I was definitely not a great advocate. And now I just gave a presentation on self-advocacy. And it made me realize that it wasn't about an opportunity to find my voice. It was really cultivating it over time and slowly building that momentum so that using it became more natural. And when I met you, you were instrumental in helping me to do that, because you gave me not only some confidence, but the support and the platform to do it. So I really appreciate that. And I think it comes back to the importance of community. You really need your people in order to build up that confidence and to start sharing your story.
Absolutely. It's so true. And so before we dive in, I've got some questions for you. I see some positive feedback in the comment section as well. Let those know that are here watching today and those that are watching down the road, how can they find you online to gain your insight on a daily basis?
For sure. Well, I'm most active on Instagram at pkd.wellness. I also have a website, which is pkdwellness.ca. And those are the two best ways to find me.
Amazing. We have one comment here from Holly who says that she is so proud of you and wants to thank you for sharing such inspiration on a daily basis. And I know that she's talking about your Instagram, because as we share it and elevate it on a daily basis, it's food for the soul. So we absolutely love that. And I agree with Holly wholeheartedly. We have another comment, not a question, from Krista that just says, for those of you that are at the start of your journey, I want to thank you for sharing this with us. I wish I'd heard this 20 years ago when I was first diagnosed. Still lots of great things for us to apply. So as I'm sure you can attest to, Ciara, and those that are on the summit today, regardless if you're newly diagnosed or, like I mentioned earlier, a seasoned pro at living with PKD, there's always something to learn. There's always something to cherry pick from someone's wisdom or their journey. I've been raised in a family with PKD my entire life. I've been in this role for 15 years, and I still learn things every single day. And that's exciting, and it's inspiring. So again, this is just more motivation as to why it's so important to share our journeys, because what you share today or tomorrow may be just the piece that someone needs to be able to take that step forward. I know we have a video to cue to in a minute, but talk to me a bit about those early days for you. As we talked about, we've been working together a little over a year, and you've just gone to the extremes in sharing your story in a very short time. What was it like in the early days when you were just starting to find your voice? Were there hurdles or little voices in your head that were trying to keep you restrained? What would you recommend to someone who may be watching this presentation, hearing all of your great advice and being going, whoa, not for me?
Well, like you, I also grew up in a PKD family, so I've been around it my whole life, but I never fully accepted what that meant for myself. And I was naturally very shy and reserved, and I didn't have that peer community. And that means I was missing a lot of that validation that I was craving, just someone to say, like, I hear what you're going through. I'm going through the same thing and it makes sense. And I hadn't processed my diagnosis for years, like right through my 20s. I think I just decided to forget it even happened. So I had to work through that. And there was always a little voice in my head in conversations with people that would say to me, oh, don't reveal too much. Don't tell them your weakness. Like, they'll feel sad for you. And it's through this inner work that I've realized how detrimental that is to my wellness, because if I can replace that voice with a more positive one and look at myself as more valuable and inspiring to others, I start sharing more positive stories, and they start reflecting back to me, and I start to feel good about what I've just done. So I talked about that momentum. You can't just find your voice one day. You have to start small and just get more comfortable, just like making presentations is never comfortable your first time. You start using your voice bit by bit and take the pressure off and just take it one day at a time.
I think you hit the nail on the head there a minute ago, to the point of, positivity breeds positivity. And it's very easy. We've talked through some of the presentations today and in past webinars about, Dr. Google and going down a rabbit hole and the doom and gloom that surrounds us at the best of times in today's world. But I can appreciate the fact that, by putting out a bit of positive energy into the world, and providing that support for people, you in turn gain that back probably tenfold. And I know I see you say that all the time. When you share a post, you're out there putting yourself out there to inspire people, but then the 20, 30, 40 comments and bits of feedback that you get in your surveys or in your posts ends up fueling your fire. And it's just a continued snowball effect.
Yeah, you're like joining this really amazing cycle. It's a feedback cycle. You start putting yourself out there and you get back all that positive stuff. And it changed everything for me. So I'm a completely different person now than I was a year and a half ago.
I can see it. And not just the new glasses. It's a whole new you.
Yes.
Let's throw to your vignette. Now, this is something that was one of the early pieces that you partnered with the PKD Foundation of Canada on. And again, I can't thank you enough for opening both your doors and to your family in sharing this. So let's show those in attendance your patient vignette, and then we'll jump in and talk about the thought process behind that, how you dove into that, what you felt like after the fact, and we'll continue the conversation.
Growing up, I knew my mom had PKD and that my chance of having it was 50-50. And she always said to me to get tested when I was ready. So I waited until I was old enough and, had the wherewithal to make the decision to be able to deal with it too. I was diagnosed with polycystic kidney disease when I was 17 years old. Growing up, I was a healthy, active kid.
These are those rhombohedron crystals in your pineal gland. When those crystals become electrically
I didn't have any symptoms of the disease other than having large kidneys, and that is part of the reason why I decided to get tested. Because my family has a history of PKD, in a way I felt prepared because I knew it wouldn't be alone. But at the same time, living it is very different than watching someone else experience it. I have noticed that in my generation compared to, let's say, my mom's, there is a greater understanding of the disease. When we got together about 8 years ago, I was afraid to even mention polycystic kidney disease. And Paul's reaction was just so normal and so supportive and accepting.
I remember you saying you had something really big to tell me. I didn't know exactly what it was going to be. I think I was just very much, okay, thanks for letting me know. I'm surprised that you felt that was a big secret to tell me, but
I have PKD1, which is the more aggressive form of the disease, so I am most likely looking at a transplant in my future.
Should I ever have the opportunity to, donate for Ciara if she needed that, it's definitely something I would look forward to and happy to do.
My mom has always been big into health and wellness, so she passed that on to me, and I'm very grateful for that. I was raised eating very well and staying active. What has changed lately for me is that I realize I do have a bit of control here. So I'm making a decision to get up every day and make the most of things. I have been told, it will progress as it's going to. There's not much to do to stop it. And while there is some truth to that, I know that there's something I can do every day. And that's something I've decided is food. It's how I nourish myself, is what I put into my body. If I put my focus there, that to me is empowering, and it helps me to live my life with a bit of purpose and not just getting bogged down by this prognosis. When the pandemic hit, I was on mat leave with my second baby, and I had always been dreaming of studying nutrition. And my husband and I got together and said, hey, maybe this is the time to do it. So I went back to school, and I really just wanted more knowledge on how I could nourish myself to get the most out of life, how to help my kidneys thrive as much as they can, for as long as they can. Diet actually does play a role in the health of a PKD patient. It's a very proactive step you can take. You can decide what you put in your body every day and how you nourish yourself. This is the best way to feel empowered on your journey. People with PKD are now living longer, better lives because of our increased knowledge of the disease. We have a better understanding of how lifestyle and diet factor in, and we know how to take better care of ourselves as patients. I have always enjoyed running because it's a great, healthy outlet. This year, I hit a hurdle when I ruptured a cyst on a run and then ended up being scared of running. So now my challenge is to try to put myself back out there. I think my best advice for anyone starting out on a PKD journey is to connect with others, find your community. If you're newly diagnosed or you're very interested in making the most of this, I would highly encourage you to connect with the PKD Foundation of Canada. Go online, try to connect with other patients who are in a similar boat as you, because community is so empowering. I started an Instagram page to connect with people and got an overwhelming response. And I have met almost thousands of people across the globe. There's a lot happening in the field of PKD now. I'm feeling very hopeful about the future because there are people working on advancing our quality of care, and they're also working on hopefully one day finding a cure.
Those YouTube ads will find you at the worst possible times, but here we are. Before we dive into that, I'm just going to read something that just came across my email, and this is going to emphasize the importance of presentations like yours, Ciara, and the impact that they can have. I received the following by email moments ago. Jeff, thanks for organizing today's excellent summit. It's tremendously informative and motivating, as your summits always are. Ciara's terrific talk about advocacy has reignited my urge to advocate for legislative reform to help Ontario move towards the Nova Scotia model for organ donation. So it goes on, but just like that, the impact of hearing someone's journey, their inspiration, their motivation for sharing and advocating can spark something within us and get people motivated beyond belief. So that's an incredible testimony to what we just watched and heard from you. So absolutely incredible. That video is one of my favorites, and an absolutely adorable and clearly supportive family in your husband and your kids. What was it like, again, this being one of the first things that we worked with each other on? What was it like to have cameras in your house, talking about these things with your husband, hearing what his thoughts were about when you told him your diagnosis, and having your boys there as part of it?
Well, that was the biggest thing I had ever done. I mean, at that point, I still was fairly private. So I was absolutely terrified, but excited because I felt like a great opportunity to grow. And I felt more comfortable having my family behind me. And just watching it, it just made me smile because I realized that I mentioned that first conversation I had with my husband about how I had PKD and how that may affect our family in the future. And his reaction was just so loving and neutral. And it's relationships like that that help you build up that confidence, like I've mentioned, and get you going in the right direction. So surrounding yourself with the right people makes a huge difference. And I've been able to carry that forward to caring for my kids. I talk openly with them about PKD, and I try to keep it light and appropriate for small children, but
Sure.
They are aware, they're knowledgeable, they know why we try to eat healthy, and I just try to keep an open dialogue with them so that when they're old enough and they decide to get tested, that they're ready.
And I'm a strong advocate of the open book. I mean, obviously, I was raised with a family that everything was an open book, and it inspired me to take on the role that I did, and advocate as much as my family has. I think it's vital to have that family support, but for those that may not have a family, may not have a partner, may not have someone like that, that again emphasizes the importance of the chosen community, right? And the chosen supports that are out there. to which there is a wealth. So for anyone watching this today or further down the line, the value of peer-to-peer support cannot be understated. You are not alone with this disease and this diagnosis, and Ciara can attest to that, seeing the mountain of support that she has built with PKD Wellness. I have a couple questions for you if you're willing to go through a rapid fire. We've got about 5 more minutes before we'll close things out. So let's dive right in. When you started, because I think that's the important piece, because it's an absolute inspiration to watch how you've grown over the last little while. How did you find sharing the news and breaking it down? You talked about baby steps in your presentation. So I imagine that was, immediate family, close friends, outer circle, employers, things of that nature, and then anybody with 2 ears that will listen, which is where you're at now. Can you walk us through kind of the beginning stages of what got you to where you are today?
Definitely. Well, the beginning was hard because I was living in a family that had PKD. So I was diagnosed, and then I didn't actually have to tell anyone because my mom advocated for me and shared my story with her siblings and my cousins. So I was very hands-off at a young age. And then I kept it to myself through university. And then I'm trying to remember, I was out at a dinner with my closest friends. It might have been my bachelorette or something with my sisters. And my youngest sister just blurts it out at the table. And I remember thinking, oh my God, she just put it out there. And for a split second, I was mad. And then I realized, you know what, this just opened it right up for me. I can explain what this is about. And once I got it off my chest, I felt so much better. And my friends were looking at me like, why didn't you just tell us?
Right.
So
it's often our own reservations, right, that keep things back. And then when we do get that, whether someone spewed it out on our behalf or whether we just throw it out there, that sense of relief right afterwards, to know that everything is in the open, and that you can then embrace the support that you get from people, is incredible.
Exactly.
The flood of emotions, as I can imagine, for those that are new to the advocacy game or are just starting to explore how to find their voice, how do you manage just not taking it all on and getting overwhelmed? And you and I have talked about, the potential to burn out as an advocate, especially in a public platform such as yours, or opportunities like this. So how do you control not taking too much on, finding the right groove, finding what you're comfortable with, and not feeling like you have to go from nothing to everything overnight?
Well, I just want to say that being a good advocate doesn't mean doing what I'm doing. You don't have to have a public platform, be talking about it all the time. Because for me, I need to take breaks from doing that. I don't want to talk about it all the time. I don't want to think about it all the time. So you don't have to do it to that degree. You want to advocate for yourself in a way that feels helpful on your journey. So whether that's just having more frequent conversations with your friends over coffee, or, joining a group and discussing things online. I think you need to just decide how big you want it to be, and it needs to give you what you need. Don't do it because others expect you to be an advocate. You know what I mean? Like, do it your own way.
Absolutely. No, that's incredible advice. And absolutely, it's what works best for you, what's within your wheelhouse, your comfort level, and what you can take on. And that will change, and advance and retract on a day-to-day basis. We have a time for a couple more questions. So I want to kind of expand on a big piece that I know you wrote a blog about. We shared it through our channels. You talked about it in your presentation, that transition of care, and finding a nephrologist that was more to your level of communications. And that, how did that decision come about? Was it a long process for you to kind of chip away at? Did you go in full tilt and just, lead with your heart? How was that for you?
To be honest, I did lead with my heart. I'd been thinking about it for a while, and at an appointment, I just brought it up. I said, what do you think about referring me to someone else? And I kept it very light and positive because there were no push factors. I loved where I was at, but I felt like there were other things I could gain from talking to a different doctor. So I think keeping it positive, any conversation more positive, and talking about any silver linings or whatever is the way to go.
Excellent points. A question we have here, how can I express, and there's a few that go around this topic, how can I express my concerns or preferences without creating tension within the relationship? So how do you manage not insulting your doctor, not challenging their expertise, but also, you know, recognizing your own boundaries and your own preferences, and dancing that dance?
I think it comes down to recognition and validation. Just let them know you hear what they're saying and you understand why they're saying it, and offer your side. You know, you don't have to negate what they're saying in order to be heard yourself. And then I think when both sides have been shared, that's when you have to find a way to meet in the middle.
Excellent. Yeah. And there was a point you made that we'll close up on. You talked about preparing and getting ready for these appointments and going in with as much advanced questions and writing lists. And we advocate that with patients all the time, right? Like, write your lists down, go in with a loved one, because oftentimes when you're hearing news or you know, next steps regarding one's journey, it can be overwhelming. It can go in one ear and out the other. There's misinformation. And so you talked about sometimes even going as far as asking questions multiple times to get that answer to stay in your head. Was that a common practice for you? Were you one that would prepare a list of questions ahead of time? Was that something that you learned specific to your health?
I did not used to do that. And I used to go in and just be like in a daze. I was not fully engaged with paying attention and totally overwhelmed. So I thought, right, it's like preparing for a test. You kind of create ways to better prepare yourself for things in life. And I actually keep a note on my phone, like a PKD note that I'm always adding to, so that whenever I have an appointment, I can pull that up and just refer to it. And that has been extremely helpful. But the thing that has helped me the most is that debrief I mentioned. Coming home and teaching somebody else what you've just learned really helps it stick. And then you get to process the emotions with someone that loves and cares for you.
What a note to end on. That's absolutely gold advice. Ciara, I can't thank you enough for trusting us throughout the year and change that we've worked together, for giving us your time today. I really appreciate the support that you provide the PKD community, the support that you provide our foundation. And it's been an absolute privilege to watch you grow in this space. And I'm really glad that you took the time to join us today.
Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
Okay, we'll talk soon.